Hello, my name is Professor John Benjamin, and this is West Virginia Wesleyan College, and this is Web Design. Today we'll be going over cascading style sheets and JavaScript. All right, let's begin. So let's open Dreamweaver to where we were last time. You have your index and your lab 1. And one of the things I realized is it might get a little confusing. I'm calling these labs when in Canvas they're called tutorials and assignments. So let's just take a moment and go ahead and correct that. And so rather than have this be lab 1, what we're going to have we're going to change that to tutorial 2, in fact, because that is the second tutorial. All right, and then you should have done assignment 2. So let's go ahead and change that. So instead of lab 1, we are going to call that tutorial 2 hyperlinks, lists, and tables. And so that way it goes with assignment 2. All right, and then I think to keep things so they're not too confusing, let's go ahead and change the title here as well. All right, and then what we're going to need to do is we're going to change that file name. So here's this file name is lab1. All right, and so we're going to give that a new title, tutorial 2, and we're going to call this tutorial 2 as well. All right, so it's tutorial 2 now. All right, but now we're also going to change its file name. Okay, so how do we do that? So we can come over here in our files folder and select that file, and then you can just simply call it T2 for tutorial 2. And then it's going to ask you, Dreamweaver is going to ask you, do you want to update the links? And you're going to say yeah. And so that way all of those links are now updated. See over here in the index, and those got updated to T2 as well. All right, this for me should be A2. All right, so then I'm going to say File, Save All. All right, so thank you for doing that. I think it's just going to add a little less confusion if we call them what they are. So the tutorials and assignments versus labs. We can keep the lab folder name right there. That's fine. Okay, so now let's get on to cascading style sheets. All right, so the first thing we want to do is create a new file in the labs folder. So select the labs folder, go to the drop down, say File and New File. And we're going to call this T3. All right, and then we can open T3 by double-clicking. All right, and so then there's some text in Canvas, so it's good to keep Canvas open, so you can just copy and paste rather than hand keying. So I'm going to come over to Canvas. All right, and here is the T3, CSS and JavaScript. Oh, and first I should mention a few things about cascading style sheets. It's a presentation language with its own syntax that controls the design of the page using selectors and tags. And there's 3 locations that you can have a CSS, which we'll go over today. You can have it inline, internal in the page, or what most commonly we use is an external style sheet. And another little piece of terminology that I want to point out to you is an absolute versus a relative path. And so we'll be looking at relative paths today, and I think it'll make a little more sense when we look at them. But an absolute path just simply has HTTPS and the full domain name along with the folder name, where a relative path has just .. and then the files itself. So it's just a little simpler. We'll be going over that in a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our inline cascading style sheet. So you can go ahead, copy this text here, and then bring that right into your body. And then as usual, we can just go edit and code and apply source formatting. All right, so here we have tutorial 3. Let's put your name in here. So an inline style is just like it says, it's going to be on a single line of code. So we're going to put it right here on this H3 where it says inline CSS. And we're going to give it some color, a new font, and we're going to increase the margin. So to do that, you can put your cursor right after H3 and before the closing angle bracket. And this is where we'll put our all inline styles. You can hit space and type the word STYLE. And then usually it'll pop up just like so, and you can click it. And then with the cursor blinking there, or you can click off, but if you put your cursor back between, and then you can simply start typing. So I think the first thing we want to do is put a font in here, change the font. So type in FONT, font, and we're going to select font family. In this case, I just want to use impact. So just type IMPACT, impact. And there you have it. And so there's an inline style. We've changed the typeface to impact. All right, so now let's add another style. Let's add some color. So to keep adding styles, what you do is you go to the end of the last letter before the quotation marks, and you put a semicolon, and then a space. And in this case, I'm just going to type in color, C-O-L, and then color comes up. And you can use a color picker. I'm going to choose olive drab. And there you can see, it's changed to olive drab. All right, and one last little style. We'll put our cursor at the end of olive drab there, put a semicolon and a space, and I'm going to put in a margin. So I'm going to type in M, and then margin comes up. I'm going to do margin left, and I'm going to type 15 px for pixels. And there you can see. So we have 3 styles that are inline styles that are applied to that H3 header. All right, cool. So now let's do what's called an internal style sheet. And what this is going to do is it's going to apply, we're gonna write one style, and it's going to apply it to all of the tags in this page. All right, so we can go back here, and we're going to get a little code. So I'm asking you to type in this H4 here, and you can paste that down below your H3. And then also there's another line of code and some text here, and place that right below that. All right, so I've got 2 lines of text here. First one, internal CSS, and then all H4 tags on this page will be colored red. All right, so how are we going to do that? We're going to put a style up into the head. Okay, so I'm going to put my cursor up here and hit return. I'm going to type in angle bracket, and then type in style. All right, and then I'm going to close that, and so I have 2 styles there, and then I'm going to type in some code for cascading style sheets. So when we're using internal styles and external style sheets, we use curly brackets instead. All right, so I want to change all the H4s to red, so I'm going to simply type H4, and then I'm going to type in a curly bracket and a closing curly bracket. Right, and just in the same way that we put the attributes in between the quotation marks, here we're just going to put them in between the curly brackets. So I'm going to say color pops up, and I'm going to pick the color red, R-E-D, just like that. And voila, see, all the H4 tags on that page are now colored red because the style is up in the head, and that's applying it to every H4 header here. So if I went and simply typed another H4 header, and I said hello, it would be red. All right, but I'm going to delete that. All right, so that is an internal style sheet. Okay, so now here's the really important part, creating the external style sheet. So this is the one where one file controls hundreds and hundreds of files, depending on the size of your website. Okay, so let's go back and let's see what the line of type I have prepared here for us. Alrighty, it's just H5, external CSS. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that there. All right, we've got our H5 there. Okay, and so now we're going to create an external CSS. Typically, all cascading style sheets are put in a special CSS folder. So let's do that. All right, and we're going to put that just in the labs right here. The labs folder is going to have its own CSS folder. So select labs and go to file and new folder. We're going to call that CSS, lowercase. Great. All right, now we can go and create our cascading style sheet because we have a folder to put it in. So back to our CSS designer, you're going to hit this little plus sign under source right here, and you're going to say create new CSS file. All right, then you can select browse. We want to make sure it's going into the right folder. So we can navigate to our website, and here's my website. I can go back a level to labs, and then I have my CSS folder here. So I'm going to select that, and let's just call this T3.CSS. All right, nice and simple. Hit return, and there you have it, and hit OK. All right, and then the CSS designer created that style sheet for you. And now one of the wonderful things it did is you can see right here in this code, it just automatically linked this file for us. So that's a little helpful tip. That's why we went to the designer tab. All right, and then we can come back to files, and you can see here it is. There's our CSS. So let's double click on that, and that way we can see it. All right, you can see it's a CSS. All right, and so now if we go temporarily go back to our T3 HTML. Remember, we have an H5 tag here, okay? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to apply a color style to that tag. So back here, we're going to just simply say H5 and entering curly bracket, and we're going to say color, and what color do we want to make it? Orchid. All right. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and hit File and Save All. I can go back to my T3 HTML, and there you have it. H5 is colored orchid, even though this file is a separate file. But it is linked to this file through this little piece of code right here that was created by the CSS designer. Great. So that's cascading style sheets really in a nutshell. We can go and we can add other things. So we can go ahead and come to our CSS here and add a font. Just add the colon and font family, and let's make it, I'll just make it impact. And there you have it. And then hit save and come back, and there it's an impact. So all of the styles that you apply here will then now apply to this page. All right, and that's cascading style sheets in a nutshell. So now let's talk about JavaScripts. All right, so we're going to just hop back over to Canvas for a moment here to take a little look at this. So what are JavaScripts again? They add dynamic interactivity to websites. And they're composed of variables, functions, objects, properties, and they're handled in camel case. Camel case it's a way of not having spaces between words. The first word has lowercase, and then every word after that is uppercase. And so we can easily distinguish it without having spaces. All right, so we are going to enter this text into our file, so go ahead and copy that. And we're going to put it right under H5 here, hit return and paste. All right, and so what's the code we have here? Just a regular paragraph. Hello, welcome to my web page. Hope you enjoy your stay. Now beneath that, though, we have a button tag. And the button tag has an ID. So a closing and opening button tag doesn't have to have an ID. This is just your basic button tag right here. All right, and there's a button. All right, but we're giving it the ID of color because we want the JavaScript to link to the ID. All right, so let's do that. Now this is going to be an inline script, so we're just going to go ahead and copy this bit here. But before we paste that in there, we've got to type in the tag's script. So we got to let the browser know that there's a script here. All right, and closing tag, and there we have our opening and closing script tags. And between them, I'm going to paste this code, and I'm going to go and just tidy things up. All right. So now, typically, JavaScripts don't interact on our live view. Sometimes they do. So what we'll need to do is a really special little trick. Is right down here we have preview. But before we preview, we want to say File and Save All. And then we can hit this preview button here and choose the browser of your preference. All right, and here we have this very ugly web page. But here's our button, and if I click that button, then that JavaScript is going to be activated. And what the JavaScript says is if the color is red, it's going to change to green, and if the color is green, it's going to change it back to red. So we can take a little closer look at that code here, and you can see here's the button ID color, and then this is a get element by ID, and so color is clicked there. So that's really important that those two match up. If it's red, it's going to change to green, and if it's green, it's going to change to red. So pretty simple. So now what we're going to do, though, is this is an internal style, and sometimes JavaScripts can be they can slow browsers down. And most always, just like cascading style sheets, we want to have our JavaScripts in their own folder externally. So let's come over here and let's go to our lab folder and create a new folder. File, new folder, and we're just going to call this JS. All right, and then we're just going to go put a new file in there. So I'm going to select that folder, file, and instead of untitled HTML, we're going to call this t3.js and hit return. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and remove this code and put it from this internal in the page to the external. So let's go ahead and we're going to cut it. And so now we don't need these script tags here. You see my closing and ending script tag? I don't need that. That tells this page that there's a script here, but now this is a JavaScript file, so the web browser is going to understand that it's a script. and we're going to link it. So we're going to go ahead and just simply cut out, we're going to highlight everything from after script to before script, right to that little curly bracket there, and hit Alt X or Command X on a Mac to cut. And that brings it to the clipboard, but then it deletes it. We're going to double click on our JS. Get rid of that, and we're just going to paste in our script. All right, but it is not linked to our file here, so it's not going to work. Okay, and so now we're going to create a link to that script file. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to put my cursor right here and just type src for source and equals and some quotation marks. All right, and then I can simply hit browse. I can put my cursor there and hit browse. And I'm going to go to my JS folder and click on that T3JS and hit open. Great, and then that just links it. So we can once again say File and Save All. And I can go to my preview. And I can hit Change Color, and you can see it's working. Even though that JavaScript is in a separate file, that file is now linked, and therefore that script can tell it what to do, which is by the ID. We need to link tutorial 3 from our index to tutorial 3. So let's go to our index page, and we are going to come below assignment 2 and hit return and put in a p tag, and we're going to call this tutorial 3, and it is CSS and JavaScript. Very good. And now we're going to link that to our T3 file. So we highlight that text, say insert, hyperlink, and then we look for the folder here, and I'm going to have to go back one to labs, and right there is T3, and I select open, and I want target to be self, and the title is tutorial 3. Okay, and there's my code. All right, so now after this assignment, you should have, again, tutorial 1, that's where we set up our FTP, our hosting server, and so there's no link there. Tutorial 2, that was where the hyperlinks and the tables go. Assignment 2, which you should have completed, and that's the same one. It's a continuation of tutorial 2 with hyperlinks, lists, and tables. And then after completing this, you've got tutorial 3, CSS and JavaScript. That links to that tutorial. So again, we're going to say File, Save All. Now that we have all that set up, we can select our site, and we can simply hit Put. And this says, are you sure you want to put the entire site? In this case, we do. We've got a lot of extra files we created, so let's put them all up there. And then the fun part where we can come to our browser here and hit refresh. And this is what you should see from your URL. And then you should be able to click on tutorial 3, and it should take you here. And then we put our home hyperlink there, and so on and so forth. And this is basically how all of your files will be set up. And your index will have the tutorials and the assignments, and then eventually your whole website links will come all here, so that when I go to grade, I can access all your files from your index. Great. Well, thanks again for joining me, and good luck on assignment 3.